Hi, this is Dr. Scott Young, and today we're going to do an economic and banking update. Coming right up. We're going to go over some economic and banking updates. I'm going to kind of announce we're still working on the post NESARA series. I'm going to tell you something I kind of need. If you know of someone who has some three-letter background, and you know what I'm talking about, I think most of you do. If you have a three-letter background and you have some great information that you want to present as a possibility of what will happen post NESARA or how we can kind of move away from them, email me. Okay, info@drscottyoung.com. Okay, I am looking for some people that we can talk to. Now, we're going to talk about a education one down the road, and I also have a new series. What if I don't believe in NESARA? God was kind of bugging me on that one. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, God. Why do I care about that one? And he goes, you just need to do it. I'm like, all right, we're going to work on that one. If you have some topic ideas, I'm happy to hear them. I'm just, I can't believe God would actually tell me to do that one because I'm kind of like, I'm done with you. If you don't want to like believe it, fine, don't believe it, kind of thing. It's just my flesh getting in the way sometimes, but it is that issue. Lastly, I want to say today is June 6th, 2024. We are 80 days, or excuse me, 80 years. Gosh, 80 years from D-Day. This is the day that, Stephen Ambrose and Band of Brothers said, a day of days. I think it's the second episode in his Band of Brothers series, but he actually said that in his book with that too. Now, again, I know a lot of people are talking about, some of the cabal issues related to D-Day. I get it. I fully understand that issue too. But I knew people who fought on D-Day. I knew people who dropped in on D-Day with 101st and 82nd Airborne. I knew people who were Rangers. I've been around this circumstance for a long time. But my patients were many of them the greatest generation. I had one World War I generation men, and I would talk to these people a lot, and so their sacrifice is really powerful. Their patriotism for our country needs to come back, and I believe that we're kind of moving backward toward that. But I want to honor those people and those men and women that fought in that time frame with that too. Anyway, so let's move on and talk about our economic update and a banking update here. Okay, so when we look at this now, remember, I don't sell a QFS crypto. And by the way, none of the other real truthers do it. There are people who are getting scammed left and right. And I know people are spending their own money in a scam point, but I know that I've talked to, and I'm just going to list out some names. I've talked to Patriot Underground. I know that Dave XRP is struggling with this issue. I know that Michelle Moore is struggling with this issue. And I could just go on and on and on. Patriot Street Fighter. These are different people. Disagree, agree with them. I'm not worried about that. But what people are doing, or what the sicko cabal are doing, is stealing their picture, our stuff, our content, and throwing it up to you and saying that you need to buy the QFS crypto. That is fake. Do not buy it. Okay, if you want to know the social media sites, go to drscottyoung.com and you can download some stuff on NESARA, but you can see what the social media sites that I have. Okay, big point. I'm just going to say it again. Okay, so let's get into it a little bit here. I'm going to talk about two different kind of concepts here that happen with businesses. Sorry, I'm moving something here right now. Okay, so there's these things called available for sale securities. So it tends to be a a clumping of stocks, or maybe one stock or security point. They buy it, and within a very, very quick period of time. We're talking about a 3, 6 month, 9 months kind of turnaround time, and they sell it before it matures. Now, there's several reasons why they might sell it before they mature. Maybe they're shorting that stock, which is really a sick way of doing this, or maybe they're betting upon it hitting, and they want to sell it early enough so that they can cash out the profits. So normally, though, it tends to be a short kind of position. No, there are people that times that they do that, but see, guess what? They actually would have insider trading knowledge of that issue. Trust me, it happens all the time with this stuff. So it's an equity position. So, it can be a debt or equity position, but basically what happens is they'll spend $50 million, make up a number, and they're hoping to sell it, days before that time frame comes up. This is where I think that we have one of the more major areas is GameStop and AMC stocks that were shorted, and they were looking, and there were these Reddit people, and there's a horrible, horrible movie that does the absolute lie about them. But they shorted, these people got together, didn't do anything about trying to harm anyone else. But what they were doing is setting the game. And this started in 22. So we start seeing some of this stuff happening. And what's happened is that they were trying to get, sell it for 60 million, let's say. And so they had to pay back that 50 million and take the 10 million of profit. And then they reinvested in another kind of short deal. This is a way to do real quick profits kind of thing. Okay. Now there is another slightly safer vehicle called held to maturity kind of stocks. Now these ones, they kind of know it's going up. Okay. So that, because you wouldn't buy something that was going to go down from 50 million and you were going to lose 5 million with it. So it's a little safer point. It's less volatile with that. And it's a hedge against an interest rate risk. Whereas there's a hedge over here that they know something's going to happen there. And so they're looking for that situation. Again, this I believe is more short related and more insider trading knowledge versus this one here at it's a little bit more of a vehicle, but that really most people are in the real world are not using. Again, they don't have like 50 million they can throw to one stock. It's a relatively risky position, but they're looking to make that gain, right? So these are two different types. Now I want to show you a fascinating kind of situation, and we're going to spend some time talking this through. Okay. So remember those held to maturity, the little more safe ones versus available for sale. And if you notice through the years, the biggest amount is the available for sale, because, these are people that have the money, and the more that you have in that way, they want to make the buck quicker. So they actually have some level of insider knowledge or short kind of ability or something relatively unique that they're looking at. And then we have the held to maturity. So there's not very many of them, but look at this. You're going to see this one here in a second. Let's go backward in 2008. So what the heck has happened in 2008 to 2009? Well, that's the Great Recession. And now I'm going to tell you a real interesting story. In early 2009, I had money in a CD IRA, and I hadn't done anything with it for a long time. I think I moved when I moved from the Denver area out to the Oklahoma area. I put it in a CD for a bit, okay, and I didn't know what to do with it. And this is really I was very, very like green on this whole thing. Now I started working with a firm that I actually got fired from here. What's funny is I got fired from here in this time frame. So we're talking about basically 11 years or so. I'd been with them before, but it was and I kept some of my stocks over here at this time frame before that. But I got fired from them because I told them about gold, and it messed them up here. But I remember buying into the markets here in the beginning of 2009, and I lost over half of the price of that stock. Now, in that same time frame, so was everyone else. So you see these losses that hold up. I mean, these really ugly losses that were happening at about 50 to 75 billion dollars of losses. Now, it's funny that not even, where the stock market crashes, and look at the changes that happen and go up in all the way through 2013. So this is when Obama's in office, and then there's an absolute change. And why are they doing this? Is because they got maybe $250 billion, the banks, and they were spending it like drunken sailors with this too. But what you don't know is that at this basic time frame, the White Hats were actually bringing in $83 trillion to bring in an amount of money so that NESARA could actually release. And you go, whoa, that's the stuff that I talk about in Revelations of the Red Pill book. Okay. But this is another piece of information that I wouldn't have had in that book, because it's just like too crazy to realize. Now, so there's major gains happening. Now the market's starting to float back up. And I remember watching that kind of thing. Now it dies off a little bit in 2012 to 2013. What's that? Election time frame. Now, I'd known this time frame here. Now, I'm starting to learn about NESARA, but I didn't know what it was here. But I'd known these kinds of time frames that always slowed my business type. Patients that I see tended to have a little bit more money, not a lot, sometimes a lot, excuse me, sometimes a lot. But what would happen is that they were driven by fear. And that's what political offices love doing. They just love creating fear in this. And that's what happens to markets. So if you have a fear-based market, they're not spending any money. Now notice that they're not losing money, they're not spending money. I mean, it's a pretty flat market with that too. That means they know something, but they spend money again in these kinds of timeframes. Now, Trump gets in office in 2017, and it's pretty flat because they're not sure. They're very unsure of this. Okay, late in 2017 to 2018, we have Executive Order 13818 here, and 13848 coming in here. And look at the losses that start showing up. It's because the cabal knew that the White Hats were coming after him. Now, they started to spend money again because they thought that they were safe. And look in 2020. Now, realize 2020 we have massive economic bad changes. This is where they were making money hand over fist in a way that they had not made in a bunch of years. Now, I'd have to go back in time to figure this out, but it's a long time frame where they made this kind of money. And these are when the Walmarts and the other ones went up in values. But guess what happens? Now, when we thought, NESARA was going to happen and all this other stuff was occurring, it wasn't. They had to drain the swamp, but they had to take their money. So look in 22, right around the same time frame that we see the AMC and GameStop kind of stocks. So those short positions are not getting sold, not getting sold, not getting sold. And so all of these short positions are coming up in ugly levels to massive amounts. And so why aren't they closed? It's because those securities held to maturity, which is those tan lines that you're seeing there, are just sitting on the books. They haven't sold them. That's why they haven't gone under. And because if they would sell those kinds of stocks, if they spent $50 million, if they spent $100 million, what happens? And we're talking about 100 million, okay? If they spent that kind of stuff, that is more cash than they have availability to do. Now, as a business that actually was running, I remember when I was running at about a $500,000 to $700,000 business, I didn't have $5,000 in savings. You go, how could you be that way? It's because I was in a bad debt to income ratio. A couple circumstances was going to flush me down the toilet. And that's where these people are right today. And they're faking it for a very long time frame. This is how sad and crazy the situation is. Now, and this is why these people don't want to talk about this, because it's so weird to have a conversation about. This is the same thing, available for sale, held to maturity, slightly different kind of thing. They just flip the little color points with a little bit here. Um, and we see that same kind of thing happening here, that as many as 63 full on lenders are insolvent. Now, there is a potential that today, as I speak, that I'm going to put this video out here for you, that many of these banks are fully insolvent when they can't even comply with the capability of Basel III compliance. Basel III compliance means they have to have 10% of the assets on hand to be able to lend anything out. Well, guess what? That's why they're not lending. And when they don't lend, houses don't get sold. When they don't lend, you don't have short-term loans like small kind of equity loans that don't have asset-backed kind of thing. You don't have, people say, well, you can get 12 months same as cash kind of thing. And yet the reality is you can't. You have banking issues happening for auto loans. Do you know that auto loans, and I'm going to pull off the screen here for just a second. Do you know that there are auto loans, and I've been looking at some of this stuff here, car manufacturers, OEMs, that's what they call them, that they have cars in the lot that are getting repossessed. And I don't remember the exact terminology. They have a term, and every company type has a term, right? An industry. And it's possessed off the lot. Places like CarMax goes and buys that sucker. Now think about that for a second. That means the OEM, that little Ford dealership, that Chrysler dealership, that Hyundai dealership, it isn't relevant to the type, okay? What happens is they have a car on the lot, they have to pay for it from the manufacturer. It's been on the lot too long, they can't pay for it anymore, and it went into default. So the bank repossessed it from the dealership, and now CarMax is sitting over there with a new car, or whatever dealership that bought it, taking that new car on. That's how scary we've got things in the industries with this too. Now, this is pulled, sorry, let me pull it up here. This is pulled from a different source. I blanked it out here in my issue, but basically it's same as last slide. They're all dying in this way. 63 banks are on the brink of default. We have 500 billion in paper losses held by those banks. There's a declining GDP because no one's spending any money with it. And you got inflation running away with you. 50% of Americans believe we're in a recession. That means Great Depression level times 30. That's why I keep telling you that kind of thing. Lowest mortgage demand in 30 years. See, real estate agents don't want you to hear this, but that's exactly what's happening. There's $17.7 trillion in total household debt. It is like crazy stuff. Now, some people will tell you that the whole system's, take your money out of the bank. And yet here's the reality. If the White Hats didn't know about this situation, and see, I told you that they were bringing it on in 2017, 2018. This is why they were having these major losses. NESARA came on the scene, in essence, at this kind of time frame, because Trump was actually going about the world, NESARA, GESARA, going throughout the world and collecting those people along in his capitulation tour. Derek Johnson talks a lot about that, okay? But it is about money as much as the military issue. See, there's this is an article I found, and a lot of the NESARA articles are not there anymore, but this one was out there, and I was kind of playing around with this, looking at this, because actually LBJ, when he was, after he took over, and there's a lot of cabal takeover, after, JFK dies, he gets killed by many bullets, and he takes over, and then he wins the election in a massive landslide in 64, and he gets out in 68. One of the only people actually who could have run another term and didn't. And you got to ask the question, why didn't he? because Nixon was set up to, or was told that he was going to be in office. And it was done by Joseph P. Kennedy. So you're like, wait a second. And so we have the Farm Bill coming out here. It's because they were stealing people's land left and right. This is happening in Nixon's time frame, and it goes in 71. Why is around 71? What does that have a deal with you? Oh, another false flag event. So they were going into the gas crisis, which is just taking us off the gold standard. So we have gold and farming matching up. Another proof of NESARA, but it's a really oblique way of looking at it. You see, Volcker in 79 to 89 was the chairman at that time frame. They were talking about anti-inflation measures because inflations were peaking up at 11.6% of that year. Now, that's when it was actually tied to oil. And see, now it's not tied to oil anymore, and yet that means that it's fake. Everything you read about that is fake, fake, fake. And they kept, increasing the rates to try to pull back that stagflation. They call it the Great Inflation during that time frame of the 70s into early 80s. And they were fighting against this. Now look at this. Farmers protest at the Federal Reserve headquarters, and car dealers who are especially affected by high interest rates sent coffins containing car keys of unsold vehicles. What? What am I talking about? I keep talking to you guys about car businesses, right? I talked to you about the farm issue because guess what? The Farm Bureau was getting hit by the farmers at this exact same time frame, and they were sending the IRS against these people. And here's something, this was about a year or two ago. I don't remember the exact date, but how come, and I'm going to play this, but you're not going to hear any sound. It's not any sound on here. How come the Federal Reserve plaque or plate is being removed? And you go, oh, well, it's because they were changing it out or whatever. Is it? I don't know that for sure, but it's sure interesting that a year or two ago, this sucker's taken down from the St. Louis Federal Reserve. Oh, well, maybe it's still back there again. Is it? I mean, we've seen emblems that idiot Biden has up that isn't even presidential. Do we know? How much do we know what's going on here? How much are they stripping away the systems with that too? And I would say to you this. What you think you know is not exactly what you know. And I know that's kind of like, well, that's just a crazy statement to say. But the banks are getting torn down in different ways. And they're going through their bankruptcy, excuse me, their bankruptcy reorganization. We see, and by the way, your money is still safe. Chill out, okay? Because the QFS team has already mirrored your amounts. We still have the FDIC that's there for lower end funds, less than 250,000. But listen, if you're not in the cabal area, you're okay. You're fine. But we have to take down the systems, and we have to refund that money into the funds for each of the nations so that they have the ability to move forward. Now, this isn't just for money to shove in your own pocket. It's for the systems to be reset, because we need to rebuild cities. We need to rebuild roads. We need to rebuild all kinds of industries that have been torn down by the woke idiots. And this whole system is we're going to see lots of change, but you're going to see opportunities for jobs and capabilities you've never really thought about before. So that's why I want you to think ahead. On a day when we very solemnly remember those who died on the beaches of Normandy, you need to think forward and go, you know what? Patriotism is coming back. It's going to be okay. I promise you it's going to be okay. So thanks so much for listening. Subscribe. It would really help me out. We'll talk to you later.